Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the last edition of this Johnson bandsaw build. I named this one Who Wants to Play with My Johnson? Mainly because we're going to actually make some cuts and play with it a little bit. First I want to talk about squaring up your machine. You remember your bolts in here with the eccentric. This is the main shaft that goes all the way through the machine. What you want to do is after you get these blades square, you want this to be running parallel with the table. And what I use as a point of reference is the slot that the vise rides in. That's pretty much the only machine surface that runs parallel with the table. So use that and get yourself running parallel there. After that, I set my blade tracking, and those are with these 4 bolts here, these 2 here, and these 2 here. What you want to do is run the saw with no guide rollers in it and run the blade and then start tipping this rocker until the blade just starts to derail. When you see the blade pulling away from this little shoulder, when you see the blade start pulling away from this shoulder, then start taking it back. And you want it to just ride on the shoulder, but you don't want it to be forced into the shoulder because you will wear it out. So you do your 4-bolt adjustment here, and then back on the gear drive, if you look in my earlier videos, you'll see the set screws underneath the gear drive to tip the gear drive. And believe me, that one is no fun. I got pretty lucky. That one rode perfect, and I only had to give them about 1/8 of a turn, and I got it on the first shot. Okay, so you got your blade tracking right, and you got your blade tracking parallel with the table. Now we need to get our blade vertical. So we came to these set screws here, this little guy here, there's another one right on the back side over here. It's the same on the rear carriage, front or rear, doesn't matter. And we loosened this bolt, and we took these 2 and teeter-tottered them until we got square. Just get yourself a little machinist square, real simple. And what you want to do is make sure that it rides against the square all the way up. It starts up there, and then as the blade descends, you want to stay right next to the square the whole way down. That way you know the saw is coming down square. If you can't get that to happen, go back to these adjustments here. This not only controls the parallel of the table, but it'll also control the tilt of the head. When I say tilt, I mean the head tilting this way or this way to make this vertical cut happen. Now you've got another phenomenon with your horizontal cut, and that's just a matter of squaring the vise. So you pull your vise back. Then you're going to want to lay your square down this way, and you make certain that you bump it into the blade and make certain that your blade is 90 degrees from the jaws of the vise. I'll go ahead and bring that down now. And you just hold it tight to the jaw and bring it over and just barely bump it into the blade. Just like that. I'm hoping you guys can see that. I can't get it any closer. Okay, but you've got your saw cutting square to the vise, the blade running very vertical, plus you've taken and tipped the blade here and here, so the blade itself is 90 degrees from the table. So those are all your adjustments. Let me give you the rest of the walk around on this machine. I kind of revamped the factory linkage. This is the linkage here that runs the down feed, but the linkage was really hokey. I made that coupling right there. That is a piece of urethane with some grooves cut in it to kind of weaken it, and it makes for a good offset coupling. And it doesn't matter what you do when you raise the table, the the movement doesn't care whether it's off, whether that shaft's parallel or whatever. So it made a nice little coupling, and I just drilled some holes in it. You can see I got some roll pins in there to pin it off. But that was kind of a revamp on the factory system. I reused the factory switch linkage. It's right here. That goes down to this little rocker under here. And then there's a piece of flat bar that runs up. And of all things, they run a regular toggle switch upside down with a roll pin through it. And that's what turns the machine off and on. I think they put the switch upside down so that there's no possibility of any metal chips ever getting in there. But that flat bar just kind of hooks around the toggle switch and drills a hole in it. And that makes that connection. So that was kind of interesting, and that was factory Johnson there. Everything was painted green, that hideous green. So I knew that was from the factory. I did have to revamp this drive a little bit. This thing was, I had the 3-step pulley on the driven side. This came with the machine, but some knucklehead had put a single shiv in on this side. They just put a little 2-inch pulley on this side, and he was running the 2-inch directly to this one, and we didn't have any speed control. And so I went out and got actually a 4-step shiv, and I had to cut one of the steps off on the lathe and shorten it up a little bit to make it work with this. But I made it pretty easy to change the belts. Up here I had to make this motor plate and give myself some adjustments so I could move the motor up and down. But it's just spring loaded, and there's a little block of Delrin snapped into that spring to, or actually it's urethane again, just to keep the vibration down. But that's all the tension it needs. All they were doing before, when this machine came to me, it was just the gravity of the motor was holding the belts. That's it. So I kind of redid that a little bit. And this is the Dayton half-horse motor that was on the bench. I haven't done anything with that antique motor that I had over there. But yeah, that's a brand new Dayton. And there's the downfeed cylinder. And here, let's close up the shrouds. And I'll give you an overall look at the entire machine with everything closed up. Okay, so you've seen the whole thing, and you're saying, gee, Stan, does it cut square? You've been talking about square and level and plumb and all this stuff forever. So let me get set up and we'll make a cut. What we'll do is we'll cut a piece of flat bar 2 different ways. I'm going to cut this piece of flat bar this way first, vertically, and then we're going to check it for square. Then I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to lay it down flat, and we're going to cut it that way, and then we're going to check that for square. And there's the blades I bought for it. They're Lennox Diemaster 2s, and I've got a pretty nice assortment. I bought 3 different blades that are going to go with the machine when I sell it. That's the medium. There's a very fine tooth there. Another Diemaster, Lennox again, all bimetal. And then I've got a hogger here for aluminum or big aluminum blocks or something like that if you really want to crank it up and get through some big chunks of aluminum. So I've got a nice blade assortment that goes with the machine. That's $100 worth of blades right there. They were about 30 a piece. So those are going to go with the machine when I sell it. This machine is for sale, by the way. Okay, you've been saying, Stan, let's make a cut, so let's make a cut. Turn the machine on here. and down feeding here. That's my auto off feature working. When this thing bumps in here, it turns itself off, so that's pretty handy. And let's pull this thing out and check it. That looks pretty darn square to me, and that's the most difficult cut to make right there, is a vertical thin cut. The blade wants to wander on the way down because the blade is so thin it likes to steer itself on the way down. But that's pretty darn good right there. And here we go, we're going to make a vertical cut on a piece of flat bar. I'm going to set my machine here. Let's pull my stock out just a little bit. And I've got my fine tooth blade on there now. That's a piece of 6x8 flat bar. And that, as they say, is that. Let's take a look at it, and park the machine up here. Let's take a look at it, see how square we got. Damn, that's pretty darn good for as fast as that cut was. I'll pull the square away just a little bit so you can see the hairline in between the two. For as fast a cut that was, that's a really square. I was pushing that blade pretty hard getting through that, but we got through it in less than 30 seconds. So yeah, I'm very pleased with this saw. But here, let me back this vise up a little bit, and we're going to take our same piece, drop it in there, and run our down feed a little bit until we get within the same zip code. And we're taking a smidge off there. Don't have to check it for all intents and purposes. Start our machine and open our down feed. This is actually too fine of a blade for a horizontal cut like this. The rule of thumb is you want 3 teeth in contact with the work at all times. And right now we've probably got 20 teeth in contact with the work. So you're not clearing that big of a chip right now. So it's a little slow on these horizontals. When we're done with this, we'll probably cut a nice big block of something with that big monster blade over there and see how we like that. Okay, we made it through that one. Not much of a piece. Real tiny. Hi guys, I'm back, and there's a piece that this side is a horizontal cut. This side is a vertical cut. I was just curious to see what we had there. Oh, I'm at one end of it right now. I'm going to zero it, and then I'm going to flip, and we are 7/1000ths of an inch difference between a horizontal cut. Hoping you can see the hash marks on it. On that one you can see the blade traveled this way, and then on this one you can see the blade traveled this way horizontally. So that's the difference between the two cuts. That's pretty darn good, I'm thinking. So yep, you're at 0 there. So yeah, now we're getting to the point where we're showing off with the thing. If I can get a bandsaw to hold 7/1000ths of an inch, I'm pretty happy. Okay. And here we're back. I've got my blade changed out to my big coarse tooth. And that is a 1x3 block of 4140. And we're going to get through this. So we're going to fire up the machine. And we're going to start off slow until we've got a good contact. We're just going to come down and get a pattern started. And as soon as I think I got 3 teeth in contact with my work, I'm just going to open up the feed and let her rip. And there we go. And you can hear that blade buzzing. It almost sounds like a mill. Pretty impressive little blades. Actually, the chips are little curls like a mill. But that machine's getting through that block and not even flinching, so it's doing well. If this machine had a bigger cut capacity, I'd probably keep it, but it'll do a 5-inch round and I think a 10-inch flat. And that's the capacity. That other saw over there has got more capacity, even though it's a piece of junk. approaching the end of your cut right there. Just in case it wants to jump out at me. There it is. And the machine's off. It turned itself off again. And I didn't manage to keep that thing. Gosh, I didn't even have time to get hot. Cut through it so fast, didn't even warm up. But so yeah, we know what it's capable of. I cut that off an inch and a 1/16. I got a piece I got to make, so I'll actually use that. So that's that. We've gone through a vertical cut, a horizontal cut, and a cut with some substance to it. And you've seen my machine. Again, that's a Johnson Manufacturing Corporation. And thank you for playing with my Johnson with me. Lights out, and good night.